Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be discussing The Help, the movie and the book, and we're just going to go through the differences. I know I told you guys that I was going to do this video like ages ago, but I was watching the movie on Hulu and then it was gone. Like they took it off Hulu. And so it took me a minute to figure out how to watch it again. And I finally found it on Amazon. Now, I will admit that I wasn't like super intense about finding it, you know, but we got to it, okay? It's fine. And I still remember enough, and I made notes so that I wouldn't forget everything that had happened and all the differences. So it's all good. But so The Help is a book set, I don't even know the time frame. I don't know. It's back when there was still a little bit of segregation. Um, They could be in the same, like the blacks and the whites could be in the same room, but they still weren't allowed to like use the same toilets and the same sinks, and they had their own churches and schools and things like that. So we're not really in like slave times, but we're still not quite where we are today. They definitely live in like what looks like plantation homes and things like that. So that's kind of the setting of this story. Well, so in the book and in the movie, we're following Skeeter, who is a white journalist, and we are following two of the black housemaids, I guess that's what they're called. And we're following Abeline and Minnie. And Abeline is a housemaid to, what's her name? Elizabeth. And Elizabeth is, I don't know, she's a bit bratty. But she's like the quieter kind of bratty, like doesn't fully own it. And she has a little girl and she doesn't really pay attention to the little girl. Abeline does most of the raising of her. And we follow Minnie, and Minnie was a worker for Mrs. Walker. But Miss Walker is old and she got put in a nursing home. And so Hilly Hilly is Miss Walker's daughter, told everybody that Minnie was a thief. And so Minnie couldn't find work in town. And Minnie has a smart mouth and she's very opinionated and she will say whatever. And like, you will not disrespect her. Like, she'll hold her tongue as much as she can, but at some point she's going to snap back. And so no one really wanted to hire her. So she goes to work for Miss Celia. And they sort of build their relationship, and it's so much fun to watch their relationship because of the fact that Minnie is expecting a lot of the same societal norms with Celia, and Celia's from the South, but she's from like the Hicks, and she doesn't care. Like, she sought out Minnie to eat lunch with her at the same table. And Minnie's like, no, that's not how this works. You need to go sit at your own table. And so he was like, no. And so I love their relationship. And it's very similar between the movie and the book. And so a lot of the things that were similar was the fact that Celia didn't want her husband to know that Minnie was working for them, because Celia wanted to prove to him that she could be a housekeeper and she could cook and all these things by herself. And Celia has already proven that she cannot do those things, at least not very well. And so Minnie teaches her how to cook and how to clean and all these things. And one of the similarities between the movie and the book was that Mr. Johnny didn't know for a long time. In the book, though, he finds out earlier that Minnie is working for him. Or, well, he voices it earlier that she's working for him because he knew the entire time. Like, he said as soon as his wife's cooking got so much better that quick, like, he knew something was happening. But in the movie, he doesn't find out until way later. Like, he doesn't talk to Minnie about it until almost the end. And in the book, him and Minnie talk about it, and they agree to not tell Celia that they knew that Mr. Johnny knew. You know, it's a whole thing. I feel like we're very scattered in this one, but it's okay. We will figure it out. I've got notes. So let's go back to Skeeter. A lot of her story is very, very different from the book. So in the book, Skeeter becomes a journalist at the newspaper writing Miss Myrna columns. And Aibileen and Minnie help her write these columns because she doesn't know how to be a housemaker. And so they answer a lot of the questions and give her tips and stuff. And she just writes it. Well, she also decides that she's going to take a chance and write a letter to this lady, Miss Stein, in New York and try to get a job working for them. Well, Miss Stein turns her down because Skeeter doesn't have any sort of experience. And so Miss Stein tells her, write me something that's punchy, something that's new and fresh, and something that you're passionate about, and then I'll let you know. And so Skeeter decides that she's going to write a novel from the perspective of the help. And nobody wants to help her. Nobody wants to help her. Like, none of the black housemaids want to be a part of this. Because, I mean, they're terrified. As soon as they start bad mouthing their employers, they're going to be out of a job and they need their jobs. And so Skeeter finally convinces Aibileen to help her. And so Aibileen starts helping her, and then they slowly get other people to help too. One of the differences with the movie and the book is that in the book, they had agreed from the start that Skeeter wasn't going to approach anybody and she wasn't going to ask anybody to help. But in the movie, she asks Yulmay to help, and Yulmay turns her down. But the reason why they didn't want her asking is it's already suspicious enough. Like, they don't need Skeeter going up to all of these black women and causing a lot of attention, like drawing a lot of attention to them. And so Aibileen was going to go and like be discreet and talk to these ladies about helping. But nobody really wants to do it. And in the book and in the movie, nobody wanted to help until something happened. Um, in the movie, Yulmay gets arrested for stealing a ring to help her boys go to college. And so she gets arrested. And so in the movie, a lot of them help. But I think in the book, this guy got attacked. And so then a lot of them were helping. Yulmay did get arrested, but I don't think it was the cause of them helping in the book. I think this guy got attacked. And so then a lot more of them had decided to help. I think. I could be wrong. But so that was a little bit different. Another part of Skeeter's storyline is that she is attempting to figure out what happened to her maid, Constantine. Constantine practically raised her. And Skeeter went off to college, and Constantine was just gone. And her mom won't talk about it, won't share what happened. She has no way of contacting Constantine, so she has no idea what happened. And none of the other maids will tell Skeeter what happened because they just don't want to talk about it and they don't feel like it's their place and they're just trying to stay in their lane. And so Skeeter ends up finding out towards the end of the story. And that was one of the differences between the book and the movie that was a little bit bigger. Because in the book, what had happened was Constantine had a little girl and she was born really light skinned. Like, she could pass for white. And her name was Lulabelle. Well, Constantine had sent her away to live in like an orphanage because a black lady raising a white looking child, like, that's not gonna work. And so they sent her away thinking that that would be the best thing for her. Well, then they got back in touch when she was a little bit older, and she came to Skeeter's home to see Constantine. But she came in and was like pretending to be one of the DAR ladies, and she was passing for one of them, and she was asked to leave because they realized who she was and she was asked to leave. Well, she refused to leave and she ended up spitting in Skeeter's mom's face in front of all these DAR ladies. And so she had to like force her out. And she ended up telling Constantine to leave too. Like, you can go with your daughter or you can stay here. Like, you have to choose. And so Constantine chose to go with her daughter. I mean, she hasn't seen the daughter in who knows how long. And so that was a whole thing. But in the movie, what had happened was the daughter's name was Rachel. And everyone knew about Rachel. Oh, I messed it part. Um, in the book, nobody knew about Lulabelle. Nobody knew about it. It was a secret. And so in the movie, everyone knew about Rachel. They loved Rachel. Rachel was a big part of the family. And so Rachel came to the door and she used the main door. I guess it didn't look like a main door, but I guess it was the main door. And Skeeter's mom told her, if you're going to visit your mom, you have to go around the back, like the servants do. Well, Rachel came in the front door anyways and said, I'm going to see my mom. And so she like disobeyed Skeeter's mom in front of all these ladies, these DAR ladies. And so she kicked her out and kicked out um Constantine. And in the book, she had also told Lulabelle why she was given up. Like, she gave that whole story to Lulabelle, told all the secrets. Whereas in this one, she didn't do that because it was Rachel. And Rachel very much looks like a black lady. And so they changed that. I'm not entirely sure why they changed that, but I guess it's not a big part of the story. Mm. In the book, we find out later that Skeeter's mom has cancer, whereas in the movie, we know pretty much from the jump that she has cancer and that she is really sick throughout the whole movie. Also, part of Skeeter's storyline is her dating this guy named Stuart. In the book, she never told her mom that she was going on dates with this dude, or at least not the first one. But in the movie, her mom knew from the first date. And the first date was the same in both, where he just got drunk and Skeeter got real smart mouth with him and was like, what the heck are you doing? And then it was a couple weeks later, he had come back to Skeeter and was like, hey, I'm really sorry. I told Hilly that I wasn't ready to date. There's no way that I was in any position to date. And he's like, let me take you out, let me make it up to you. And so Skeeter goes and she ends up going on several dates with him. They end up being in a relationship. And one of the ways that the book and the movie really divulge, they divert, is with their relationship. So in the book, they're dating and they have like a big family dinner at Stuart's house. So it's like Skeeter and her mom and her dad and Stuart's family. And his dad is some sort of politician, and he'll Skeeter's dad is saying some things that kind of go against what Stuart's dad is all about as far as like his political line. Skeeter ends up being alone in a room with the dad, and the dad tells her that Stuart's ex-girlfriend ran off with a civil rights activist and canceled her engagement and everything, and like that's why he's still kind of hung up on the ex and stuff. And Skeeter had asked him, do you still love her? And he said, we need to take a break. Like, that was his answer. And so they sort of break up. And then several weeks later, he comes back to her and they're talking. And she had just found out that her mom has cancer. And so they kind of like get back together and she finds comfort in him. And then he ends up proposing towards the end of the story. And she decides to tell him about the book that she's writing because she feels like he needs to know. And he told her that he's not going to tell anybody about the book, but that he can't be with her. And so they end up breaking up for good. Well, in the movie, Her mom knows about the dates pretty early on, and in the movie, he ends up ending it with her because she tells him about the book. There's no proposal or anything. He just tells her he can't be with her, and so actually they have kind of a big fight about it, and then he like walks away. So that was pretty different. And then he comes back, and then her mom comes out on the porch and like runs him off and stands up for Skeeter, which is a big deal because throughout both, her mom is not very supportive of Skeeter. They make Skeeter out to be really ugly and not very marriage material, not very attractive. And I'm sorry, it's really hard to believe that Emma Stone is not very attractive because she is just gorgeous. And they can like doll her down all they want to, but she's still gorgeous. One of the things that was very similar between the book and the movie was that Hilly wanted Skeeter to write up this newsletter about some things that she was doing for their like DAR club or whatever. Well, I don't even know what it's called. But it's their high society club basically. And she keeps asking Skeeter, and Skeeter kind of keeps putting it off and doesn't want to do it because she's starting to like not agree with her friends. Like her friends are high society, and they believe that the blacks should be separated from the whites, and Skeeter is just like, I don't really believe that anymore. Like I've grown up, I've matured, and I don't think that way anymore. And so Skeeter ends up writing in the newsletter saying to drop your old commodes off in Hilly's front yard. And so Hilly comes outside and she's got all of these commodes in her yard, and people are just like leaving them. And she's screaming and throwing a fit. And Skeeter's just like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. But she's like, I can't believe I made such a typo. Like, my bad. And it's just hilarious. Like, she got her back pretty good for that. But Hilly is like on to her. Hilly does not believe that she is on their side at all. And Hilly actually finds some like Jim Crow um pamphlets in her bag and like confronts her about it a little bit and like asks her about it, and she's like, okay, all right, who cares? And so that wasn't a huge deal. But what really got Hilly mad was this book. When this book got published, she got so mad, and she like confronts Skeeter. She's yelling at her and all over this, all over all of these things on the front porch. Well, Skeeter's mom comes out and she confronts Hilly and kicks Hilly off the porch and is like, just get out of here, just go. And oh, it was so fantastic because Hilly really needed to be put in her place, you know? Because Hilly was such a brat. Hilly is the one who lied on Minnie and told everyone that she was a thief, and then later tells everyone, or tries to tell everyone, that Abilene is a thief. She gets Minnie fired. She got Abilene fired. Celia has been trying to like help out with this benefit that Hilly is running and try to be part of their society, but Hilly is not having it. Hilly just ignores her. They don't want anything to do with Celia, and Celia like lives in a nice house and she dresses nice. I mean, she dresses a little bit scandalous, but like she dresses nicer. Like she doesn't dress like trash. And the problem is that Celia is married to Hilly's ex-boyfriend, and Hilly still really likes him, even though she's married. But anyways, so they're really mean to Celia. And Hilly is she is a brat. But Minnie gets her back. And one of the things that I really liked that was actually similar to the book and the movie was that Minnie had, after she'd been fired, she brought a pie to Hilly and gave it to her because everyone knows that Minnie is a great cook. And so Hilly was eating the pie, and then Minnie tells her that she had put her feces in this pie and that Hilly had eaten 2 slices of this pie. And so it becomes a whole thing. Every time pie is mentioned around her, she just flips out. She can't even. No, don't even. At one point at the benefit, she wins a one of Minnie's pies on an auction when she didn't even bid. And she was flipping out. She thought that it was Celia who'd put her up for it because Celia is connected to Minnie. Well, at this point, Celia didn't even know about the pie thing, but she just congratulated Haley, and that's why Haley thought it was her. It was Haley's mom. Haley's mom is real bitter about being put in the nursing home, and she knows about the pie story. So she made sure that she bid on that pie for Haley so that Haley could remember how good the pies tasted. You know, like hilarious. Like, I love me some pettiness in some books now. Something else that was a little bit different about the benefit stuff was um Hilly had requested Celia pay a fine for kind of ruining their benefit, and it was a $200 fine. This is in the book. And in the book, Celia sends the check for $200, and she does the whole pay to and says to Slice Hilly because of the pies. But in the movie, Hilly, it didn't look like Hilly had requested it. It looked like Celia had just sent it to her. You know, here you go. Because Hilly like shredded it up and threw it on the floor and went out of the house crying, and she was so mad about it. One of the other differences with her mom, with Skeeter's mom, is that Skeeter's mom knew about the book a lot sooner than in the book. Because Miss Stein had called and her mom had actually talked to her. And so that her mom had actually talked to her about the book and her going to New York and being part of that team once she got the job offer after she had published the book. One of the other differences that really doesn't even make a difference is she had kept the story of the pie to herself forever. She never wanted to mention it. She didn't want anyone to know about it. And she kept it quiet in the book and in the movie until like she absolutely had to. But in the book, she ended up sharing the story and putting it into the book as reassurance that if Hilly read the book, she would never convince anybody that it was Jackson, like their town, because she wouldn't want anyone to know that she ate the pie. And so they needed the reassurance. And the reason they needed the reassurance is because Aveline, in her part of her story, she had talked about this L-shaped scratch in Elizabeth's table. And it was a very specific detail that made it very personal and kind of gave her away. And so they told the story of her, they told the story of Minnie's giving her the pies in order to keep her quiet. So that way she would be like, oh no, other tables will have scratches like that. It's fine. It's definitely not us. But in the movie, it was after Yul May got arrested that they decided that they needed the assurance. And so they added the story of Minnie and the pies. And then when Hilly was confronting Skeeter about the book, she told her, I know it was you. I know this is about us because you put the L-shaped scratch in the book. And so I know it was you and I can prove it and I'm going to sue you. And Skeeter's like, go right ahead. I don't care. And that's when Skeeter's mom kicks her off the porch and is like, how's that pie taste? So funny. One of the biggest differences that I am a little bit disappointed about is the scenes with Celia's miscarriages. In the book, we have no idea that Celia is pregnant. We just know that she's acting funny. She is like sitting and moving as little as possible, like not getting out of bed, like sitting on a stool all day or in bed all day. And so then Minnie comes into the room to like be cleaning, and Celia's in the bathroom and she's having a miscarriage. And so she's like crying and there's blood everywhere and all these things. And Minnie is like, what in the world? And so she's having to deal with that. She's having to deal with Celia and she's having to call a doctor. And it was a whole thing. And then we find out that Celia has gotten pregnant multiple times and she's lost them all. And in the movie, like, we still had that scene, but it wasn't as big of a scene as it was in the book. Like, it was a much bigger deal in the book than it was in the movie. And I really didn't like that. I was really looking forward to how they were going to portray that because it was a deep and emotional scene. Now, I will say, in the movie, what they did is they had an image of Celia burying a box in the yard, and this little bush was on top of it. And you could see multiple other little bushes. And you just knew that that represented like the headstones of the babies that she had lost. And I really, really liked that touch. I thought that touch was perfect. I also really liked this change for the movie. Towards the end of the movie, Mr. Johnny had told Minnie that he knew, and he was walking inside the house with her. And Celia had made this whole spread of food on the table, and Mr. Johnny pulls out Minnie's chair and like she's a high class lady and sits her down, and Celia serves her. Like, I just thought that was fantastic. I really loved that growth in how Minnie got to actually be served for once when she's been serving everybody her entire life. I think she said her first baby girl or child that she had watched over was like, she was like 14, 15, 16, right around in there. And she'd been doing this that long. And so I really liked that scene. I thought that was really good. In the movie though, some of the scenes seemed to be out of order, and I very well could have been just not remembering right. But it definitely felt like some of the things were out of order. And there was a scene where Minnie is at Celia's house, and there is a naked man standing in the yard. We don't know who he is. We don't know why he's there, but he's in the yard. And Minnie like goes out and tries to like shoo him away. And then he's like aggressive with her. And here comes Celia out of the house with like a fire poker. And together they like attack him and get him to run away. And I thought that was a really interesting scene. I was really excited to see that in the movie, but it wasn't in the movie at all. I mean, granted, it has nothing to do with anything other than showing that Celia doesn't see her as like the help. Celia sees her as a friend. And I loved that because that was Celia's whole character the entire time was like, you're here as a friend. Like, I'm not going to treat you like you're beneath me, like I'm your employer. Like, I'm here to learn from you. Like, you have the knowledge of how to be a wife and all these things, and I don't know how to do those things. And I'm going to treat you like a friend. And so I really love that. And I think that scene helped with that, but I don't know that it was super necessary for the movie. So I guess it didn't really matter. But yeah, I think that's all of the differences. This video has been very scattered. I have no idea. I even had everything in order, but I just shared everything kind of chaotically. So hopefully you could follow that. Um, so let me give a quick summary of everything of the story so you guys kind of like know what's happening. Okay. So we get the early stuff where we're being set up with Aileen working for Elizabeth and Minnie trying to find a job, and Minnie can't find a job. And Skeeter is becoming a journalist, and Skeeter is hanging out with her old friends that are high society. And slowly she starts being like, I don't like this. I don't really agree with this anymore. And so the more that she hangs out with Aileen to do her columns, the more that she's like, okay, I really need to write this novel. Especially because Miss Stein in New York is needing her to write something special. And so she's trying to recruit Aileen in order to help her write this novel. And through different circumstances, Aileen is able to get more of her friends to help Skeeter write this story. And they end up having like people in their community who are beaten up or who are arrested. And it just makes the story that much more necessary because they're hoping to change something. They're hoping that by getting this story out and people seeing their perspective, that maybe things will change a little bit if we write the story from the perspective of the help. And Skeeter is wanting to write something meaningful and powerful. And she does. I think she has 12 maids who have given their stories. And then Skeeter wrote her own story growing up with Constantine. And Skeeter is dealing with a lot of the backlash from her friends in their society because she's pulling away from them. She's acting different. She's not like them anymore. And so she's getting a lot of backlash. And we end up seeing the effects of this book coming out and how some of the maids had really great things to say about their employers, but some of them really didn't have good things to say. And you see those employers get real freaked out and real upset about things. And because Hilly saw that story in there about her eating the pies, she tells everybody that it's not about Jackson, and she convinces everybody in the town it's just a story, it has nothing to do with us. It's just made up. And Skeeter ends up getting a job offer to go to New York. And she's terrified to leave Aileen and Minnie because if things get bad, if there's backlash, then they're the only ones there to take it. Whereas like Skeeter is running off to New York. But Aileen and Minnie aren't scared of that. Yes, Minnie is safe at her job, and Aileen had lost her job in the end of the movie or end of the book, but they're not scared of any of the backlash. And they're like, we've lived our lives. Like, what are they going to do? What more can they do? And they're like, you still have the entire life to live, and you're never going to find another man here. The entire town hates you. You have to leave if you want any sort of life. And so the book ends with her agreeing to go to New York. And that is a much better summary. And hopefully you made it to the end and were able to actually benefit from that summary. Yeah, so this is a little bit chaotic, but that's fine. We're gonna roll with it anyways. Have you read The Help? Have you watched the movie? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you in the next one.